What's going on, guys? Welcome back to CarX Street, where we have just received a huge PTR test update that includes some changes to tuning, optimization, and the overall physics and handling of the cars in-game. You guys know the drill. First, we're going to go through all the patch notes here point by point, then we're going to hop in-game and check out some of the changes. All right, so first up here, it says, "What's up, drivers? New public test version of the update is already available on Steam. Please note that your progress made in this version of the game won't be transferred to the main version." So just something to keep in mind here, guys. If you are trying out the PTR update, you definitely don't want to do your grinding here on PTR because it won't carry over to the official update. After that, we have our list of what's new. First up is going to be improved physics settings. Now, I'm really excited to check out these new physics. I'm curious to see how close they feel to the previous PTR update, which did receive some mixed reviews. I feel like wheel players really enjoyed that previous PTR update, whereas controller players, it was a little bit more of a mixed review. So we're definitely going to be checking out those new physics on both today. After that, we have improved game performance on hard drives and slower solid state drives. Great to see some more optimization coming into the game. Now, I do have my game installed on a PCIe solid state drive, so I have no real way of testing out this new optimization. However, if you guys are running a hard drive or a slower solid state, definitely let me know how the game runs for you down in the comments below. After that, we have adjusted weight balance when changing car bodies. Body swaps are now more effective for C3 class cars. Now, I haven't personally messed with the body mods a ton, but this seems more like a balancing move for C3, which is great to see. And then we have another balancing adjustment, reduce the tuning range for air resistance and transmission losses. Now, I'm not sure why they would reduce the tuning range of any value in the game, as typically I feel like more tunability is better across all metrics, but like I said, I have to assume this is another balancing adjustment. After that, we have another one related to balance. We have increased transmission losses for all-wheel drive cars. Now, this could mean one of two things. This could mean that they increase the range in which we can bring our transmission losses down for all-wheel drive cars, but I don't think that's what this means. I'm betting that they increase the transmission losses overall for the all-wheel drive cars because in my experience, especially in the higher classes, all-wheel drive cars are way more competitive than rear-wheel drive cars. I assume they made this move to balance out the playing field a little bit and make all-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive cars a little bit more competitive with each other. After that, we have raised the center of gravity of cars, which is another interesting change. I know a lot of players on the current physics have been lowering that center of mass in the tuning on both racing and drifting tunes, but maybe that higher center of gravity will feel better on these new physics. After that, we have fixed a bug that allowed an advantage when using larger wheels. This is a great one to see. I know a lot of people were running these crazy builds with like huge wheels to gain an advantage on the leaderboards, so it's great to see any change that makes those leaderboards more fair. After that, we have improved tire grip on the road, kind of goes hand in hand with those new physics. And then we have a huge one. We have expanded brake tuning range. This is one that I personally have been asking for a ton, as I feel like the brake torque is just too high even on the stock brakes. Hopefully this means that with a set of ultimate brakes, we'll be able to bring our brake torque down further than previous and maybe even get that brake bias up higher as well. After that, we have optimized gear ratio settings for stock gearboxes, so our stock transmissions should feel a little bit better for us. Increased low-end engine torque, which is really interesting. It seems to me like all the engines in the game are going to have a little bit more low-end torque, so that should change things across the board. And then we have improved throttle simulation accuracy for gamepads and steering wheels. Now, I haven't really had any complaints about the throttle as far as my controller or my wheel, but it's great to see improved accuracy nonetheless. After that, we have increased the weight of the LSS engine. Now, I personally haven't LS swapped any cars in this game yet, but I have to assume this is yet another balancing issue. And then we have another absolutely huge one. We have added a slipstream effect. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to be a super aggressive slipstream like Need for Speed or GTA, or if it's going to be a little bit more dialed back closer to Forza Horizon, but either way, I hope the slipstream doesn't come into effect while we're drifting. After that, we have smoothed out angular roads, so it looks like CarX made a few adjustments to the map itself, which is really cool to see. And then we have control assistance settings have been added. Now, this is another huge one, as I know a lot of players have been looking for the ability to remove that steering assist while playing on controller so that the car doesn't automatically countersteer. Now, that is going to do it for today's patch notes on the PTR update. Let's hop in game and check out some of these changes. All right, guys, so here we are in game with the Mark IV Supra. This is the car I know best, so I figured it would be best to hop in this thing and drive it around for some comparison. And honestly, off the rip here, at least slow speed in the parking lot, it feels pretty similar to me so far, but we're definitely going to want to get out to the Togue, I think. So the transition feels a little bit snappier maybe on the midpoint, and it does feel like we have some more grip here, which is really interesting. The car actually feels a little bit more controlled. Now, before we get too far ahead of ourselves with drifting, I do want to head into the tuning section here and see what happens with these brakes. Hopefully we can bring that... No, the force didn't change, but they did add more brake balance, so we can go up as high as 100. Not gonna lie, guys, that's a little bit disappointing. I was hoping to see that braking force able to go a little bit lower, but we are gonna try out that front brake balance all the way up at 100. So here we are testing out the new brake balance, and it immediately feels way better. This car is notorious for just having an absolutely like way too aggressive left foot brake, and this feels way better off the rip already. Obviously, having that higher brake balance, moving the pressure up towards the front, definitely helps to offload that rear axle with your braking pressure. So this feels really nice here, man. We're gonna need a little fuel, I think, for our little Togue adventure, so we'll stop here and fill up. There we go, stock gas. Let's head over to the Togue and really feel out the grip on these tires. All right, guys, so here we are up at the Togue with our new brake bias. Now we're gonna try out these tires and see how they feel on the Togue. And I will say, off the rip, it does feel like the car is more gripped up than the current physics, but not in the same way as the previous PTR. I feel like the car was a little bit more prone to understeer or like to return to the center a little bit more on that previous PTR, whereas this feels more like a little bit of an overall grip change. I will say it feels super planted, solid, and smooth on a typical drift. I just feel like with the reverse entries and the rotation transitions, that's a little better. It just feels like it's, I don't know, it's not rotating as easy, and when it does, it feels stuck, which I mean, that's something that we can adjust to in our tuning or our driving style, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that these physics are bad. I will say, I feel like the transitions feel really nice, and like I said, maybe those backies are just something that we're gonna have to get a little bit more used to here. And try and send a little more angle, catch it. That was a little better, we got the mega backwards there, but I do think you can feel a little bit more grip compared to the current physics on the game. That was a nice backy. See, once we get used to it, it's really not so bad. And that's something I think we have to keep in mind too, is that if they are gonna update the physics in a way that improves the wheels, we're gonna have to kind of get used to that on controller, right? And so I don't think it's possible for them to just add good wheel physics and not change how the cars feel on controller, because it seems to me like they're all just one set of physics that they need to get right in a way that kind of just works for everyone. Now, I am really curious to see how this feels on wheels. See, I'm still getting some really nice rotation here, and I think I just need a little more practice, but I am curious to see how this feels on wheel. So I think what I'm gonna do is plug my wheel in at this point and drive on wheel a little bit and see how the transitions feel. All right, so now that we're here on wheel, the big thing I wanna check out is the transitions, right? Because I feel like, oh man, it feels a lot better in the mid-range here. Still a little bit of wheel vibration, I would say, at certain points, but whoa, wow. Oh, it feels so different. I will say in drift, it feels like there's a little bit more, I don't know how to explain it. It feels like when you move the wheel, when you're in drift, it feels like you're pulling on rubber bands a little more. And I know that sounds absolutely crazy, but it feels like you can kind of move the wheel in more and the car's not so direct. It's not so touchy, which I think could be a positive and a negative depending on your driving style. It is nice to be able to kind of pull the wheels around a little bit more, and it feels really nice. There's not as much like air and jackhammeriness when you are changing direction, but in drift itself, it feels like you can pull the wheel a little bit more, and it doesn't feel so direct, like the wheels are moving super easily. So I do feel like on a first impression, these physics are better on wheel than the current physics are, but I would like a little bit more time to spend with them and just kind of feel them out a little bit more. But I could see myself having a lot of fun on these physics for sure. I already am. This is a blast. Let's go this way. Let's take a left here, drive some roads I don't know quite as well, and see if I can kind of figure it out and correct. So there was a little bit of air and like, I don't know, jackhammeriness to the wheel there. I don't know if you guys could even hear. Sometimes the wheel like clacks and clanks a little bit on transition, and it did it there, right there. See, when I'm at like huge angle, but it does that a lot more on the current physics, like just transitioning side, like right here. Oh, it did it there again, huh? So yeah, I don't know. I might actually say I prefer the PTR 106 physics for wheel, but this is still a nice improvement from the current update. So I would take it. If this means, oh man, if this is more of a happy medium, I would say that this is pretty good. It is still smoother. I do feel like the cars are like they're not rotating as easily as they were before though. And that's something I think a lot of racers really want, is a lot less rotation just naturally in the cars, right? Because I feel like when you are racing, the cars are super slidey, drifty, and they tend to oversteer really easily. And so I think they have to adjust the physics, like I said earlier, in a way that kind of overall makes everyone happy. And so I think you're gonna get a little bit less rotation out of the cars naturally on this update, which is just something to keep in mind. I don't think it's a huge problem. You can just rip the handbrake or clutch kick it a little more and get that rotation. I'm gonna try and not use the handbrake, but the car does feel more gripped up, right? Like I feel like I'm running inside a little more. I feel like it is a little harder to rotate it. But I do think the wheel feels a lot better on transition, and unless you're absolutely humming it, it's not gonna get super light. It did it a little bit there. It's just a little jackhammery still in some spots. Now I am running a Logitech G920, so if you guys are on wheel, if you're on the Logitech, let me know if you're having the same feel. And if you guys are on a different wheel, definitely let me know how it feels to you as well, because I know the direct drives and stuff are a little bit more of a different experience. Yeah, it just feels like it just gets a little washy at some points. I don't know. It's hard to explain. But I feel like, there we go, that's a good mega backward. I don't know, I feel like at least on wheel, I might have preferred the previous physics. Oh man, it just feels like the front wheels are a little washy, a little rubber bandy, and just something to keep in mind. Now, I do want to swap back to controller real quick and see what those controller assists are all about. Now, these might alleviate some of the concerns I have on wheel too. We have stabilization and angle stabilization in drift. Let's just, for the sake of it, turn these all the way down and get some more wheel drifts and see how it feels. In fact, I'm thinking that's probably some of the rubber bandiness that I was feeling in the wheels themselves. So this should be a lot more touchy. Yeah, so this feels more like the current physics. So I think what I was feeling was that steering assistant on the wheel itself, but this definitely is a huge change. Whoa, man. This feels more like it. I feel like I can get more used to this, even though my driving just got worse. I do feel like this is the amount of control, yeah, that I would expect on wheel. Now it did just whip around really weird there. So this is gonna give us another round of drifts to kind of try out here on wheel. Yeah, so you gotta be a lot more careful here on your throttle and brake inputs. Let the car kind of do its thing. Yeah, I got no more of that rubber bandiness. So what I was feeling before when I complained about the rubber bandiness was the steering assistant. And now the car's super responsive. This is really fun, man. Okay, so this is more like it. Now it is jackhammering up a little bit in some spots and a little bit on transitions, but like I said, definitely not as bad as the current update, and maybe not quite as smooth as the previous PTR, but a nice middle ground. Now, I do want to hop back onto my controller real quick and see how no stabilization feels on controller. So this is like steering assist off type deal. I don't know if it's not 1-to-1, right? Like it's still a little slow. Like if you did this on CarX Drift Racing, it would just be like left, right, left, right. It's still a little slower, and the car still auto counter steers, right? Like my analog stick is all the way to the right, and it's still automatically counter steering. So it's not a true simulation steering effect, but it's a step in the right direction. There's a little bit more control. Let's see how this feels now, because this is gonna change how the rotation is and all. Oh, this is awesome. Yo, this feels great, dude. Wow. So obviously I'd like to have a setting, right, where you could just turn the steering assist completely off, but I do feel like being able to turn that stabilization off or whatever on wheel and controller is just a great move for me. It definitely feels like I have more control over the car now. It rotates easier when I want it to, and definitely worth playing around with those settings for yourselves. And it's cool too, because it's on a slider, right? It's 0 to 100. So if you like a little bit of that help, you can definitely run like 25% on both of those values. And if you absolutely hate it, you can turn it off. If you love it, you can turn it all the way up. So it's nice to have that sort of tunability and how much assist you have there too. All right, so back to the top of the Togue here with the steering assist all the way off. This is way more like it, man. The car's rotating so nicely. Let's go for a big backy right off the rip here. Little nitrous backy. And there it is. That's absolutely huge. Oh, the nose pulled out a little bit on me, but that's because I was in 5th gear. This feels so much better. I definitely like the previous PTR, but I feel like this, with the tunability on how much steering assist you have, might be better for everyone overall, where you can kind of like adjust how much help you have there, which is really, really cool. This is exactly what I would hope a new physics set would feel like. Look at that, man. Just being able to backy everywhere is so much fun. Definitely stoked to get some tandems here, wheel and controller. Now, I will say on the wheel, it did feel a little bit smoother, I think, with the stabilization on, which makes sense, right? But I definitely don't think I would be running 100% ever, and it feels more true to the sim experience, so to speak, to have it all the way down. But finding that happy medium and just having that tunability is really nice. Now, I caught a little bit of oversteer there, so I think you do want to be able to use your brakes, and having that brake bias tuning up all the way is so much nicer for this Supra. It's not even funny. Obviously, like I said, I would have loved to have that brake torque all the way down, but having bias up is a close second as far as the adjustments we could have received. Getting some really nice rotation out of here. And this just feels phenomenal with the assists all the way down. This is really, really cool. Now, before the video is over, I do want to check out that slipstream effect as well. We're going to check it out here in a race as well as online. We're going to try and get some drifts. Oh, my wheel is still connected. Hopefully I'll be okay on controller, but I do want to see if it gives us like points for slipstream, or if there's like a little slipstream animatic that happens when we get in here. Oh boy. Okay, well, I can't slipstream you, sir, if you're dead. So, oh man, oh god, all right, well, these guys are out of control. Is this day 1 AI? All right, does it say slipstream up there? Like, how close do I have to be? Oh man. So I haven't seen it yet, and it brought me back to level 50, which is interesting, but I haven't seen the slipstream yet. Is it gonna say slipstream? I'm not seeing it, and it's not saying it, which is really interesting. I don't know. Do I have to be like real close, like NASCAR style, like right on his bumper? Get right up on him. I see speed. The sky's too bright, I can't see. I see accelerate. Speed. I'm right on his bumper, literally. I'm still not seeing a slipstream, at least not as an effect. So that's really interesting here. Maybe it's subtle and it's just making us go a little bit faster and we're not seeing it, but I didn't really feel a difference, and I didn't see a difference either. Now, I will say too, while we're here in the overworld still in the R32, it does feel like the game is running a little bit more stable in the city. This is where I had the most kind of like stutters and FPS drops previously, and so I do feel like it feels a little bit better here in the city areas with the optimization. Like I said, I do have the game installed on a PCIe SSD, so it should be running pretty stable for me. But if you guys are running this game on a hard drive or a slower solid state drive, or maybe like an external solid state, definitely let me know what you guys think. It does feel a little bit smoother for me, which is great to see. I'm not even seeing it go down into the 60s, so that's really good. I'm getting between like 75 and 85 while recording, which is really, really nice. The throttle too does feel, I guess, a little more snappy on the controller. Let's try it on the wheel too. Maybe a little laggy on the wheel versus the controller, but definitely nothing I noticed previously or anything like that, or anything that would ruin the game. Now, I'm curious to see here too on the tuning for transmission what happened with the losses as well. Yeah, so I'm -1 here for my transmission losses, but if I go up to -0.9, it won't let me go back as far, so that's interesting. So I did just check the video on this tune. The transmission losses was at -1, so it looks like if you change it and then try to go back to -1, it's only a difference of like 0.1, so I don't think that's huge, but it looks like they did lower the amount in which you can lower your transmission losses, so I'm gonna actually keep that where it was, because I'm a pro hacker and want that little bit of advantage. All right, so I am trying to hop online here to end the video with some Supra tandems. Unfortunately, though, I'm getting an error. It says server is full, please try again later. Now, this does only apply to public lobbies, which I was hoping to get some public tandems, but you can create a private room here, which is still really nice. Now, one more thing I did want to point out before we go, guys, is that I am drifting with the current Ackerman setting of 75, which is where I used to like it on controller, whereas for wheel, I used to have to actually bottom that out all the way down to 10 to make this thing transition even somewhat smoothly. But now here on the new PTR, I can run 75 all day long, and the car actually feels great. So, although I did give it a little bit more of a mixed review previously, I have to say I feel like this new PTR is a huge improvement on wheel once again, and especially where you can tune that stabilization setting on controller, it feels great over there too. The racing felt really good. In fact, the R32 felt really fast. I was definitely trying to stay behind the cars a little bit to try that slipstream out, and again, I didn't feel anything on the slipstream, and I didn't see anything either, so that's really interesting, but I do feel like they have a little bit better of a shot here having the whole player base except the new PTR update where you can tune that steering assist level, so it's really nice to see there. Once again, guys, huge shout out to the CarX devs for paying attention, listening to us as a community, and making this game better as it moves along. I say it in every video, but I do feel like the constant support from the devs is what's going to make this game really special in the long run, and I can't wait to see where it goes from here. So guys, if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys a ton. If you did enjoy the video or found it useful at all, please feel free to leave a like down below, subscribe for more just like it, and definitely let me know what you think of today's update down in the comments below. Once again, guys, if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you guys a ton, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.